Another mother wails in pain for her son. 24-year-old Issam Atta became the latest victim of state brutality in Egypt. He was tortured to death at the hands of military police officers at the infamous Tora prison. His coffin was brought to Tahrir Square as a reminder to many that post-revolutionary Egypt bears the same scars as the former regime. 24-year-old Issam Atta was one of thousands to be tried and sentenced before military courts since former President Hosni Mubarak was ousted more than 8 months ago. He was convicted of thuggery, charges human rights groups have called spurious. His 2-year sentence came to a violent end days before his appeal. Atta's lawyer saw no bruising to his body, but said water was leaking from his anus and mouth. Human rights activists say Atta was sodomized to death with water pipes, punishment for sneaking a SIM card into prison.
ومش هشيله الا لما يجي حق الشهداء والمصابين والمعتقلين في السجون الحربيه وكل من هو أجير من هذه الثوره من المجلس العسكري ويا داخليه انت تتعدى قدرتك على ظلم الناس.
Atta's death brought back dark memories of Egypt's recent past. The infamous case of 26-year-old Khalid Said made him the face of state brutality before the revolution. He, too, was tortured to death by police officers, and his case galvanized hundreds of thousands of Egyptians into the popular uprising in January that toppled Mubarak. Photos of Atta's corpse began to circulate on the internet a day after 2 police officers involved in Khalid Said's murder were sentenced to 7 years in prison.
لأن لا ما عندناش ثقة في الديمقراطية النيابية النهارده، اللي ادى الشرطة اسلوب هذا النهج في العمل مع الناس مين؟ اللي بيحصل في مصر حاليا هو عمل سري بتلعب فيه الأجهزة الأمنية دور خطير جدا.
Meanwhile, members of Egypt's hated police force went on strike throughout the week. Thousands of low-level police officers in front of the Ministry of Interior called for their current bosses to step down and for better wages. Some admit off-camera the state's security apparatus permits a culture of arbitrary detention, bribes, and torture. Human rights groups documented hundreds of detainees died of torture and maltreatment during the Mubarak regime. In 2002, Amnesty International warned anyone taken into detention in Egypt was at risk of torture. Activists say nothing has changed since Mubarak was replaced by the military council. Demonstrations against the government erupted throughout Egypt upon word of Atta's death. Those protesting the military council foresee a future where the remnants of the former regime maintain tight control over Egypt regardless of the upcoming elections.
الأحزاب كلها ركزت على دم الشهداء ولغاية اليوم لم تتخذ أي قرار ثوري لصالح فقراء مصر. إن الأحزاب المصرية أحزاب ديمقراط، والدليل على ذلك من تراهم يجلسون على البقات، هم بشوات، هم من النخبة الأرستقراطية الذين لا يحسون بالشعب المصري.
Recently, posters calling for Field Marshal Khalid Hussein Tantawi to run for president were plastered in several cities throughout the country. Fears run high that the military will not relinquish its power.
هو عايز السلطة ومش هيسيب السلطة بسهولة، ولو حتى ساب السلطة هيجيب واحد هو يعرفه من المجلس العسكري نفسه، واحنا مش عايزين كده، احنا عايزينها مدنية.
The latest torture death has angered many Egyptians. Large crowds marched to the despised state TV and radio building, where protesters were confrontational towards the police. As unemployment skyrockets in the Arab world's most populous nation and frustration toward the military council intensifies, many Egyptians believe the country could be on the verge of a second revolution. Activists vow to expand their efforts against the military council in hopes of disrupting what they call another rigged parliamentary election. Jihan Hafiz for The Real News in Cairo, Egypt.